Whoops. I have it incorrectly. It's White Weenie. He's not playing Mono Red Devotion. It's White Weenie. So guys, we're already into our round 3 feature match, I should say. The battle of the two undefeated players. Brian Gross playing Mono Black Devotion, who we saw in the previous round, the other undefeated player. On your left, we've got Aaron Henry. This is his first time ever playing on the stream, but not the first time playing here at the store. He is playing a White Weenie aggro deck, possibly a Barely Boros deck. We'll wait and see. And his opponent is Jonathan Wright, also on 2 wins, who's playing a junk mid-range deck featuring Voice of Resurgence, various mana accelerants, removal spells, and then a high end of Obsidat with a whip to go along with it. So we saw a Soldier of the Pantheon come down on turn 1, a Precinct Captain, which met an Abrupt Decay, and then a perfect curve into Boros Reckoner from Aaron here. In a pretty good spot looking at Jonathan's hand. I see an Abrupt Decay, so we'll be able to take out that Reckoner. Oh, it's not an Abrupt Decay, it's a Voice of Resurgence, so in a much worse spot than I previously thought. There is a Loxodon Smiter, which Aaron's going to go ahead and gain 1 life off of the Soldier of the Pantheon trigger. Something that is oft forgotten, but incredibly important. So, Jonathan's going to be able to kill the Boros Reckoner here if he wants to, but it will trade with the Loxodon Smiter. There's a Spear of Heliod. So now trading with the Reckoner doesn't seem nearly as good. You're still going to take the 4 damage, but you have to clear out the Reckoner if you can. And that's what he's going to do. So redirect the 4 damage from the trigger straight to Jonathan. Take 3 off the now 3 power Soldier of the Pantheon. And Jonathan is down to 9, stuck on 3 lands. And then Aaron does not have a 4th land. No further play, just passes the turn back to Jonathan, already at 9 life, having missed his 4th land drop last turn. Looking for an answer. We know he can play a Voice of the Resurgence at a minimum, but that won't be able to block the Soldier. And we see out of Jonathan a Tristani, which is good at stabilizing. Of course, he has to play a untapped Shockland to do it. It's going to send him down to 7. The multicolored spell is going to send Aaron up to 23. And then just tacking in with the Soldier is going to put Jonathan down to 4. And Jonathan not realizing the interaction between Soldier. It's only opponents casting multicolored spells, not when any multicolored spell is passed. So Jonathan's Tristani going to help to clog up the ground, except for the fact that Aaron's creatures both have evasion. It's going to help him gain some life should he play another creature here. But he is facing down 5 power of basically unblockable damage at this point. Adding the Voice of Resurgence to the board is not going to help him here. But it is going to help him gain 2 life off Tristani's ability. And another multicolored spell. Soldier of the Pantheon doing a lot of incremental work here in terms of life gain. Sending Aaron back up to 24. We see in his hand, it looks like 2 copies of Heliod, waiting for that 4th land in order to slam it. And an Imposing Sovereign. Interesting that we didn't play that. I'm not sure why we didn't. Oh, I'm sorry, it was not 2 copies of Heliod, that was a copy of Celestial Fair. So a huge blowout for Aaron here, as Jonathan's source of life gain eliminated off of what is basically almost irrelevant attack there, with Aaron's life total so high. Of course, it's not going to be able to block, and you don't necessarily know that Aaron's playing Celestial Flare, but huge blowout there for him. So serving in for what would have been 5, thanks to the spear, but an abrupt decay on the spear, saving Jonathan 2 life effectively. So dropping down to 3, dead on board, and Aaron adds a precinct captain. So Jonathan up against it here, needs to find an answer to at least 2 of these creatures. Killing one of them will not put him out of the danger zone. Needs to find a non-multicolored blocker for the soldier. That's not going to do it either. Sin Collector going to gain Aaron another life. I feel like he's gained about 8 life off of this single soldier. Sin Collector revealing Soldier of the Imposing Sovereign and the Heliod that we already knew about. Looks like Jonathan just doing that to get a look at the last 2 cards in his opponent's deck. So Aaron Henry off a pretty solid curve. That is a good one. OJ killed Dumbledore. Alright guys, so we're back to live action here. Jonathan Wright on the play. Down a game with his junk mid-range deck. Starts off with the turn 1 Elvish Mystic is going to scry off a Temple of Silence. I'm going to leave it on top. While Aaron starts off the best that he can with a Soldier of the Pantheon. Not nearly as good against the Elvish Mystic. I would imagine at this point Jonathan would be willing to trade here. I'm assuming he would be willing to trade. And Aaron doesn't have a trick, so he's just willing to offer it up. I guess he didn't think Jonathan was going to trade, or his curve is such that he doesn't care if it dies or not. Well, that's a good reason if you're just going to replace it, so you hamper Jonathan's mana, keep him from getting out of control. Racing to his high end of Obsidat, and then just quickly replace your board with a Judge's Familiar and a second copy of Soldier. So passing back to Jonathan here. Here's his 3rd land and a Loxodon Smiter, a card that is incredibly good, as well as in the modern format. It's a card that doesn't get a lot of fanfare. It was played a lot when Return of Ravnica first came out, but kind of fallen out of favor. But that card is hard to deal with. Can't bold it, can't counter it. Makes playing Cruel Ultimatum or Inquisition or activating a Liliana feel incredibly dangerous. And then Jonathan just passing back with 3 mana up. Oh no, I apologize. He's not passing back with 3 mana up. He's going to play an Overgrown Tomb untapped and pass back with 4 mana up. So what are we representing here? Selesnya Charm plus Abrupt Decay, or 2 charms, something like that. No, it's Advent of the Worm. And I believe the Advent token is just green. So, despite the creature being, despite the spell that makes it being multicolored, the token is just green. So, I don't have a worm token. That's what Jonathan was looking for. I don't have one. So we'll just use this tip card. Oh, we'll use a Scissors Lizard. I like it. So Aaron gets blown out a little bit there as he loses his 2nd soldier, but he does replace it with a precinct captain. More importantly, Aaron's stuck on only 2 lands. We do know that he has a high end of Spear and Heliod himself. So we're going to serve in here. Wow, interesting. He's going to throw his precinct captain under the bus here. And take 1, 2, 3, 4... I think he may have forgotten about Trample there. And Jonathan, forget mid-range strategies, just going to jam all these creatures on the board. So another copy of Smiter, as well as an Elvish Mystic. And Aaron's seen enough, stuck on 2 lands, facing down about £1 billion worth of. He loses that game. Aaron now on the play, all tied up here, and yet another 2-power 1-drop, as we see Dryad Militant make an appearance to Jonathan's tapped Temple Garden. And it looks like Aaron's curve is pretty brutal this game too. Here comes a Precinct Captain, and if he draws another, I think he's only on 2 lands again, but if he draws a 3rd land, we're going to see a Boros Reckoner, and there's a Sylvan Caryatid, one of the best cards Jonathan can have in this matchup. And there is the 3rd Plains. So we're either going to see Najani here send that Precinct Captain to the air, which probably is the play now that we have the, well, Aaron disagrees with me. Just going to get into with his Dryad Militant, play his 3rd land, and cast a Boros Reckoner. He does have in his hand, looks like another copy of Precinct Captain, and a Johnny Caller of the Pride, and a 3rd card that I can't make out. So next turn, he can play a Johnny, give his Precinct Captain double strike and flying, and get in for 8 damage, but more importantly, make 2 soldier tokens off of the combat damage trigger. So Jonathan just passing back. Looks like we're representing Abrupt Decay here. So you might not want to use the Ajani. Minus here. And I think I like this play a lot better, because the Jonathan clearly representing removal. We see that it's a Doomblade, but you've got to expect something as well. Or Abrupt Decay, obviously, in fact, is a possibility as well. And before damage, we're going to tap our Caryatid, and we're going to Doomblade the Boros Reckoner. We're still going to take 2 off of the unblocked Dryad Militant, but still in a pretty good spot here for Aaron, as he has an active Ajani. Jonathan, no real signs of being able to deal with that, and we know he's going to be able to untap, slam another Precinct Captain. And I believe he has a Celestial Flare as his final card in hand, which will prevent any kind of attack on his Ajani here. So Jonathan plays a 5th land. It's a basic forest. And here we're going to see a Voice of Resurgence, followed up by a Loxodon Smiter. So consider the grounds thoroughly clogged up, but we're now going to be able to activate a Johnny, give the Precinct Captain double strike and flying, as we previously talked about, get in for damage, more importantly make a couple of blockers. Is that a Brave the Elements? That's another Soldier of the Pantheon. So we've got another Boros Reckoner, another Soldier of the Pantheon, and an active Ajani here. So a lot of different options for Aaron. All of them good, as he has a lot of business. Lot of business coming. So there is a Boros Reckoner. There is a Soldier of the Pantheon. Now what are we going to do with a Johnny? That is the question. I guess there's arguments to be made for upping it and putting the counter on the Boros Reckoner. You can also go aggro like we talked about and get the damage in with the Precinct Captain. There seems to be plus upsides to both of those lines. So the chat indicating that should definitely not put the counter on the Reckoner in the previous instance. Preferred the Precinct Captain. Well, that's what he's going to do this time. But he's not going to serve in here. I would think, ironically, in this situation, you probably want it on the Reckoner. As it gives you a way of dealing with the Loxodon Smiter. What is the, what kind of loyalty do we have to get to on a Johnny to ultimate? Well, it's not going to matter, because an Abrupt Decay is going to take out a Johnny. It was an 8, so we were several turns away here. Jonathan down to just a couple cards here. He's got a couple good creatures on the board, which would otherwise be in a pretty good spot, but just the works have been gummed up on both sides by a variety of creatures. And then off the top for Aaron, well, it doesn't look like it's anything too impressive. At this point, we're definitely going to want to see a Heliod or a Spear of Heliod. 3 mana 4. And we're remembering the Abrupt Decay life gain, Jonathan being a classy guy, as he is wont to be. And not unlike a boss, Aaron ripping another Ajani right off the top. Are we going to go big with this Precinct Captain? I see a Golgari Charm in Jonathan's hand, which is not that great here. So we're going to put another counter on a Boros Reckoner. We're going to serve in just with the 4/4 Reckoner. I guess at this point we could consider speed bumping with the Caryatid, as mana is not really a huge issue. That being said, we do need a second black mana source in order to cast an Obsidat should we draw it, so we might not be willing to throw that under the bus. We can of course put our Voice of Resurgence in the way and make a 3/3 as opposed to the 2/2 it currently is, but in that way we're basically going to take 2 damage anyway. So you might just take the 4 and just move on. So Jonathan thinking a lot here. So we're going to Golgari Charm, giving all creatures -1/-1. Aaron's going to gain 1 life off the multicolored trigger on his Soldier of the Pantheon. It will kill out those 2 creatures. It will make the Reckoner a 3/3. And so now we can block with the Smiter and just trade it out, if we so choose. No, it looks like he's just taking the damage directly. So with this line, Johnny's going to take some damage here. Oh, I apologize. The Loxodon Smiter also -1/-1. Golgari Charm being symmetric does affect all creatures, not just your opponent's creatures. So just saving some life there. We're going to serve in with the Smiter on the Ajani, putting the Ajani just down to 1. So we're not going to be able to use the minus ability anytime soon. There's 5 mana for an Obsidat. That's why I mentioned earlier why we might not want to be glib with our Sylvan Caryatid. Might want to save it for a rainy day. And we're going to phase it out here, so just we're basically tapped out here. 1 green open is not relevant. Off the top we draw, is that a Brave the Elements? Probably want to save that for next turn. So we're going to put a counter on what? We have to be careful here on the swing back. 2 loss of life from the Obsidat coming back in. If we block with the Voice, it'll be a 1, 2, 3, 4 next turn. 8, 13. So 15 basically. 15 damage being represented by Jonathan currently. That's assuming he doesn't play another creature, which would make it 16. This is of course assuming he blocks with the Voice here, which I can almost certainly guarantee he does. So we're going to serve in with both creatures here at 4/4 first striking. Precinct Captain. And a 4/4 Boros Reckoner. Wait, did we not attack with the Captain? We're going to play another Precinct Captain. So Obsidian phases back in. I think Aaron might be playing for the win here with the Brave the Elements. Is that going to be good enough? 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's got exactly lethal on board if Jonathan doesn't gain any life or killing his creatures. Brave the Elements is going to be good enough for lethal damage here. So let's see if that is the last card in his hand and see what Jonathan comes up with here. Well, we know he draws a Temple of Deceit. He scries a card away. Now Jonathan figures out what are his attacks. If he attacks in with everybody on a Johnny, then a Johnny will die, and he will likely die on the crackback. So Jonathan's got a thinker here, an Obsidian, a Smiter, and a Voice of Resurgence, trying to decide what attacks we have. You would want to get that a Johnny off the table if you could, but at this point it's going to take attacking with all of your creatures, which leaves you open to a potentially lethal attack on the way back. And even if it isn't lethal, will put you in quite an unsettling life total. He's just going to pass back there. That 4/4 first striking Precinct Captain is tough to deal with here. So a Brave the Elements and a Johnny activation are lethal here if Jonathan doesn't have a creature in his hand. So we put the counter on the other Precinct Captain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Brave naming green, swinging for the win. So obviously keeping the Obsidian around would have made the Brave the Elements play not possible, since either it being white-black or the Caryatid being green would have left Jonathan with one blocker. Of course, I'm not even sure that the last card in, or that Aaron has a Brave the Elements in his hand. But if he did, I thought he did, and if that's the case, then this might be it might be all over, because I don't think Jonathan has a relevant card in his hand. So he put a counter on the Precinct Captain. Attack in here before blocks Brave naming green, and Jonathan does not have a removal spell, so that's exactly lethal. So again, not leaving Obsidian in combat didn't work out, and there's a Blood Baron off the top for Jonathan, one turn too late. So a couple interesting lines there, putting some tokens, using Johnny activations, a lot of different lines of play, but some pretty good magic. Pretty close games between the mono-white Weenie of Aaron Henry as he moves to undefeated on the night, drawing into the top 4, and Jonathan Wright's pretty interesting junk mid-range deck. So guys, we got 15 minutes left. I imagine this was the last match, but I will step out and see if we have another match to move over for you. So I hope you enjoyed that. In the meantime, make sure to go over to our Facebook page